Here in the Philippines, the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or what we know here as the DICT, performed a few questionable actions in the past couple of weeks. So, in this episode, we will discuss a lot actually. I have here my notes so that I don't miss out on anything. And yeah, welcome to the episode. But before that, let me introduce you to the podcast. Hello, this is the AI Guardrail Podcast, where we talk about ethics, governance, developments, and issues surrounding AI and tech. I am your host, Rem, also known as Kuya Dev, and welcome to the episode. Just a quick message to people who are coming from YouTube who were actually following my vlog on my MS Responsible AI journey. You might be surprised that now you are watching a podcast. So I decided to actually merge them since my journey in responsible AI or my master's in responsible AI journey is also aligned with what I'm currently trying to do now, which is to actually get into the AI governance and ethics space. So, yeah, I'm trying to combine it and also to actually maximize my time. I don't have a lot of time to do this. So, if I'm going to maintain a vlog and a podcast, I think I would die. So yeah, try to understand that the vlog would be part now of the podcast. So with that out of the way, I also realize now that I forgot to introduce myself in the past or the first episode of the podcast. So again, let me reiterate or let me repeat that I am Rem Lampa, my full name. I'm more known in the internet space as Kuya Dev on my Facebook, on my social media accounts. And I am actually a career shifter. I am not originally from the tech industry. I was an electrical engineer working for the power distribution space or industry around what 7, 8 years ago. So I was an engineer for almost 10 years, almost a decade. Then I decided to shift into tech, and yeah, I got lucky. You may say, if you may say that, because it was at the start of career shifting being a thing in tech. So I rode that wave at the beginning. I was able to transition into tech when it wasn't really something that's normalized. So right after that, I established a community to help other people get into tech like I did. Because when I was starting out, I didn't have that support system. So I decided to actually pay it forward and help people who are interested from other industries, other careers, to pursue a career in technology. So I think from at the time of this recording, the Facebook community is around 30,000 people, 30 plus thousand, 34,000. And the Reddit community is around 20 plus thousand members. So it has grown a lot. Unfortunately, the economy now is not quite good, not quite conducive to shifting careers and even starting a new career if you're a fresh graduate. So the community has kinda softened a bit, died down in terms of activity, but that's to be expected. But that's not to say that people aren't being successful in shifting careers. I've been hearing people still being able to do that. So if you're a career shifter and a Filipino, join that community. And yeah, what led me to get into this podcast and actually build this and pursue something in AI governance and AI ethics. That I already answered in the last episode. So try to, if you're interested in that, you could try watching it or tuning to it on your favorite podcast platform. So with that, I also want to provide some updates about my journey into a master's degree in responsible AI. So yeah, the first term is already done last December before the Christmas break or the holiday break. And during the Christmas break, I've been working towards preparing myself for the AIGP exam or the AI Governance Practitioner or Professional exam by the IAPP. And I'm still doing that. I'm still preparing, and I'll probably be taking that exam by end of this month. So hopefully I could pass that. They are saying that the exam is quite tricky. It's not really a memorization type of assessment. It's more of what do you call this? Use case based assessment. So they will provide you with scenarios and use cases, and it's a multiple choice exam, and you choose the right answer or the most probable answer for that particular situation. So that's kind of going to be very tricky since I'm not a lawyer. I'm a technical person, but hopefully I could get it right. And yeah, in regards to the second term of the master's program in OPIT, where I'm currently taking it, first week has already started for term two. So it's done. It was last week, and it's mostly about the mostly about the administrative stuff. So nothing really substantial there. Nothing really to share much about content about AI. But what I could share there is that it's going to be very heavy because we have a subject in computer vision, a subject in or a course in natural language processing, and AI infrastructure. So among others, and there's in total this term we have six courses, which is one more than last term, and last term was already like hell in terms of workload. So yeah, I'm kind of scared about the workload for this term, but at the same time, I'm also excited since I feel there's going to be a lot of content and new learnings to be had. Since the professors, we've already met them, they seem to be very good at what they do and in imparting what they know to students. So I have high hopes in terms of learning, but very scared in terms of the workload that's going to be required to actually survive the semester. So yeah, wish me luck on there. Yeah, and that's my update for my graduate studies. And let's go now directly to the main topic of the podcast, which is the actions that the ICT has been or has executed in the past few the couple of weeks before this podcast. So the first one, and I received a lot of flack for this, for expressing my opinion about this, is the press conference of the ICT about their adoption of blockchain for the national budget. So I won't even discuss here whether it is right or wrong for the government to actually adopt blockchain for the national budget. That's a separate discussion altogether. Let's just focus on the remarks of the head of the ICT, but not the technology itself, okay? Maybe we could discuss a bit about it later. But on the answer of the head of the ICT, Henry Aguda, when he was asked by one of the members of the media. I think this is not verbatim. The question was kind of like asking if blockchain was really unhackable. So the answer of the secretary of the DICT secretary was that it was 100% unhackable or hack free. And he even doubled down on it by, you know, saying that, exaggerating that it is, you could even think of it as 101% hack free or unhackable, which is a very alarming statement to make, especially for someone who is in government. And for someone who is in government and is also a tech professional. That's a very irresponsible thing to say. One, because if you're a tech professional and you know what software is, the nature of software is, you will never say that something is unhackable. Especially if you're in government. The standards of someone in government to be making statements is very high. I mean, let's exclude the US here, okay? The US right now is a very extreme case. So let's exclude that. But in general terms and throughout history, there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with a statement coming from a government official. Because that could actually shape policy. You never know, right? Or maybe the populace, has trust in government, right? Most of the population would actually trust government to know what they're saying and to trust what they're saying, right? So if you say something like that, you kind of mold the expectations of the public, especially those who are not in technology. So the layperson, right? So they don't know technology, they don't understand technology, much less, blockchain. It's even I myself, I'm not a blockchain expert. So there's a lot of things there, the nitty gritty that I don't know. But on the high level, I have some idea. But the common Filipino, for example, of the common person, won't have the know-how to actually discern if that particular statement is true or not. So most of them will actually just, accept it for how you say it, right? So again, let me go back. No technology is unhackable. No technology is hack-free. Yeah, maybe like people have been claiming, people have been telling me, and even passionately saying to me that blockchain is tamper-proof. I mean, given, right? Let's say let's take that for now as truth. Maybe at least for the sake of this conversation, let's assume that blockchain is tamper-proof. At least for this particular next few minutes, right? But the whole system around it isn't, right? Yeah, maybe that one piece of that whole system cannot be tampered, cannot be hacked. Okay? But even in the eyes, actually, especially in the eyes of the public, they don't actually know the pieces of the puzzle. They don't really understand what this is. They will be looking at the system that the ICT will be building for the national budget as a whole system. They don't really care about what actually happens behind the scenes. Though the only people that actually care are us, the technical people, and maybe some people in government. But the public, they wouldn't bother. They will look at this and just look at it as a whole system. So, if one piece of that system is unhackable, but the rest of the system is hackable, and there's going, God forbid, an incident, a cybersecurity incident happens, then the trust will break down, right? So for those who have been telling me that, you know, defending blockchain, like, because, or the system, the proposal for the blockchain budget, saying that blockchain is unhackable, but the others aren't. You should only look at the blockchain itself. I mean, come on, guys. They're building the whole system, not just the blockchain. If they're releasing this as just the blockchain without the logins, without the governance, without the processes within the government itself, then yes, maybe again, with the assumption that that is true, maybe, you're right. But again, it's a whole system. You don't look at a system and just, hey, this is unhackable because this particular piece of the system is unhackable. So the whole system is unhackable. Like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't really make sense. So let me also address that claim that blockchain itself, I promised not to do this, but let's do this now. That blockchain is tamper-proof. Yes, maybe today it is. But if you are a tech professional, you know that sooner or later there will be a technology that would come out to debunk that, to maybe come up with a way to break down the safeguards around blockchain. Like, there's already discussions, or already what do you call this? They're already seeing quantum computing as one of those threats against blockchain, which is secured by cryptography and hashing technologies. So they're saying that quantum computing can break that. So that's just one threat. We don't even know what other technologies would come out in the next few years, in the next decade, that could actually endanger the tamper-proof feature, or the quote-unquote unhackable feature of blockchain. So there's always that possibility that maybe not now, but in the future, it could happen. So for us to say that blockchain is 100%, never mind the 100%, 101% remark by the secretary, but just the 100% that this is unhackable, that's irresponsible. Yeah? I hope you're getting what I'm saying here. So what would I have preferred the secretary to have said? I would have, I would have preferred him to do what any tech lead would, responsibly say to his team, to external stakeholders. For example, if you're a tech lead for a software development company and you have a client, you have to account for the risk that your system can be hacked, or can be vulnerable in the future. You have to have that risk assessment, or assess the risk of your system, that maybe in the future, maybe now it isn't, but in the future it could be hacked. So you should be able to, manage the expectations of your client, to say maybe I would have done that if I were talking to a client, that yes, this is secure. This is secure. Our systems are secure, but there are always new threats that come out every day, every month, every year, that we can't really anticipate. But we will be putting in here guardrails and systems and processes to allow us to mitigate if any of those threats actually materialize. Do you get what I mean here? So you are already preparing your system and even the expectations of your clients that, hey, I've got your back. Yes, there's a possibility that maybe in the future this could be hacked. I mean, we will try to make this as secure as possible, but we never know, right? There's a lot of good developers out there, good hackers out there who are very, evil or whatever. But we will put systems in place so that in the eventuality that that actually happens, we have to do this. So I think that's the more responsible thing to have been proclaimed by the ICT secretary, instead of, I don't know. I don't know if it's ego, hubris, and I don't know. But there's no need for that showmanship. You know, what people need is transparency and honesty, which is quite ironic, right? Since this initiative was supposed to be an action or a solution towards promoting transparency in the budget and in government. And here comes the ICT not being transparent about the security of the system. So there's a misalignment in the messaging there, right? Like, you just come clean, right? This isn't going to be 100% hack proof, but we will try to make it as secure as possible. But there are always threats out there. But we're going to try to be ready for it if that time comes. Like, what happens if suddenly tomorrow there's a breakthrough in quantum computing, and now your all blockchains are compromised. So what do you do then? You know? Also, even within the ICT itself, if you're saying that this is unhackable, I don't know, no, that could also there could even be a psychological effect with people within the department, and even the third party provider that they'll be contracting with, to not account for this for the risks in terms of security. So that's a very heavy claim to do, no? And even in my post, where a few people actually tried to say that I'm wrong. What's funny there is I actually tried to research using academic papers, so that whatever claim that I had, it was backed by the by research, right? Instead of just blurting out an opinion without any basis. Because I am not a blockchain expert. I'm not a blockchain professional, and I understand that. I'm fine with that because you can't really learn everything. But I did try to understand things on a high level, taking a few courses here and there just to understand the fundamentals of how blockchain works. So I have kind of an idea of how things work, and you don't need to actually know the internals of something to provide opinions about it, right? And again, despite of having a bit of knowledge on blockchain, I still opted to back it up with actual research. And I used AI to actually search for these papers, and from the conclusion of AI, 100% of the academe is in agreement that blockchain is not unhackable. It's a double negative, I know. But even if the AI hallucinated, let's say what's the rate of hallucination? I don't know, right? Let's say 20%, 80% of the academe is still saying that blockchain is unhackable. That's something. Even if you say 50%, 40%, that's still something. So that's still a factor that should be considered in saying or in considering or in concluding that whether blockchain is hackable or not. So I don't know, even if there's just a two research papers saying that, you could just say like, like, take the approach of rubbing alcohol, for example. You're saying that it would kill around 99.9% of germs. There's still that 0.01% of germs that get through. So, just to protect you from the risks that could happen in the future. Like, yeah. Blockchain, even if it's tamper proof, again, the systems around it aren't, right. Like, for example, if the people who will be using it don't have the proper training, so how are you sure that the data that's being provided to the blockchain is accurate and reflective of what's actually in the budget and the movement of the disbursement of the budget in government. So without proper training, there's no guarantee, right? That's one. There's actually in the press conference, I don't think it was actually mentioned, but correct me if I'm wrong. And also, like, on that point, it's garbage in, garbage out. Like, for example, even if it wasn't malicious or it isn't malicious, if someone who is not trained in it, like not trained in working with the UI that would be used for entering data into the blockchain, and they make a mistake, that mistake is already permanent in the blockchain. So it's going to be there, and the only way to quote unquote remove it is to overwrite it, right? So there's no actual overwriting since it's an append only database. So whatever mistake that has happened there, it's going to stay there permanently. And that is really bad. For example, in terms of social engineering, for example, or even if we are if a fascist government takes over the Philippines, for example, and what they do is to just tell people to manipulate the blockchain. That can be done. Like, this is I don't know what the architecture would be, but for blockchain to actually function, it needs a consensus mechanism, right? So it needs to be really distributed. Public blockchains are very effective at that since the distribution is global. But depending on how they implement this, the distribution will most likely be a lot less than public blockchains, right? Because I don't think you'd want this to be on the public chains unless, I don't know, this will probably be private, a private chain dedicated for the government. Again, I'm making assumptions here. I haven't really seen the proposal or the plan. But in any case, let's assume that they are going to do this, have a private blockchain that's accessible publicly. So in terms of distributing or decentralizing the chain, the number of nodes will be lesser, and the fewer the number of nodes in the blockchain, that allows for that consensus mechanism, the easier it is to actually take over those nodes and manipulate the chain. Let's make this scenario that happened in the US. Like for example, we get our own version here of Doge, DOGE, where they come in to all departments, and go into the data of each department And I don't know what happens. I can only assume, right? So let's say we get that equivalent here, that they are not, you know, they are immune to supervision or to oversight, and they just come into to offices and government agencies and just do what they want. So that's one scenario where these Doge-like I don't know, organization or whatever comes into the physical places of these nodes, right? Or not even physical, because it could be manipulated online, no? And they could just, coordinate amongst themselves and perform those manipulation. So if there's only a few nodes, that makes it easier to do. But if you increase the number of nodes, maybe at least 1,000, but that makes it harder, right? So yeah, that's again one of the threats that could happen. I mean, it's highly improbable, but there's still that possibility, right? It's not going to be 0%. Even if it's 0.00001%, there's still that possibility. No, so and that's the deal actually with cybersecurity. No, and even AI governance or tech governance, and that the goal isn't really to make something 100% secure. That's going to be impossible. Again, because of the things that I've already discussed. The goal is to make it as hard as possible for attackers to do what they want, So again, in blockchain, it's really hard to do it. They say it would take you what, millions of years to manipulate a blockchain, but still, it's possible, right? It would only take you millions of years, but it's possible. And with quantum computing, it would just take you what, a few hours, right? So there's always that possibility. So again, no, that's the goal of cybersecurity is not to make things 100% secure or 100% hack free. The goal is to make hacking very, very, very hard. And that goes the same, for example, in AI governance. AI governance or regulation make it hard for people to do bad things. You can really prevent it, but try to make it as hard as possible. Which gets me into the second action that the DICT did. I think this was a few days ago, in which they banned Grok because of it allowing people to generate nude photos of women and children and whoever, but it takes a photo of someone and generates another photo with no clothes on. And I've seen a video I think it was in the European Parliament, of a petition to actually or make Grok accountable with these capabilities, and the prompts that they've been using to generate these photos were disgusting, to say the least. But yeah, I agree that we need to protect women and children. But the action of the DICT to block Grok, I don't agree with. And this is despite me. This is well documented. I've been a huge fan of Elon Musk before, maybe 5 years ago. But now I have utter disdain on the man. You could just check my social media accounts about it. But despite that, I still think that the action of the DICT is not the way to go. Because even though they did it to Grok, they could also do it to other platforms. So, that could undermine that. Actually, Elon Musk is kind of right with that, and that could undermine free speech. We need a better approach to how the government should be handling these kinds of situations, especially the ICT. Like, if you're in tech, you know that these companies have a way to actually turn off certain features like a switch. And it's literally called feature toggling. They can toggle that feature, and they already illustrated that they can do that. Like Grok actually disabled the feature, the image creation feature for non-paying users. So you have to pay to actually use it now, right? So they have that ability to actually turn it on and off, or even limit the users that could use it. So instead of actually banning Grok, you could have just asked Elon Musk to, hey, for the Philippines, can you just turn this off momentarily until you could provide guardrails around it? That could have been a more prudent approach. No, like it was a very knee-jerk reaction, and I think it was influenced by the actions of our Southeast Asian neighbors. Was it Indonesia and Thailand who did it? I forget. But they also banned Grok in their territories. But the funny thing here is the implementation isn't really. I think it was just again performative actions by the DICT, right? Like with what they did with the press conference for blockchain, it was all performative. And here, if you just use a VPN, you could just bypass and use Grok still. So what are you really preventing here, right? But if they just told Grok to actually disable this, for at least momentarily for the Philippines, and Filipino users, that would have been better. Again, the Filipinos could still use VPN, bypass the restrictions. But at least the common Filipino who aren't well versed with these types of approaches, they could still access Grok. Because even though I don't use Grok, again because of my bias against Elon Musk, from what I'm hearing, people are actually getting value out of it. So, why are you trying to deprive people of that, capability? So, but, I think things will be turning out for good, incidentally. I don't know. Because I think Elon Musk finally backed down, and is now currently in talks with the ICT to, or at least Grok, that the Grok team is in talks with the ICT to restore Grok here in the Philippines. And from what I'm understanding, they're finally trying to add guardrails around Grok, and to prevent it from allowing people to create these nude photos. But before I move on, let's also address people who are saying that, but people can already do that using Photoshop, which is, they have a point, right? So why ban Grok, or why penalize Grok? It's just a tool. Quote unquote, it's just a tool. Again, that's the wrong way to look at it. It's similar again to how cybersecurity should be approached, in which, yes, people will always have, or will always find ways to do very bad things. But especially for a software developer, or an AI provider, it is your responsibility to make it hard for people to do that. If it's easy, like that, you just one prompt and you can do it in 1 second. You're you're providing a very irresponsible piece of software, a piece of technology. But by adding guardrails, you're making it hard for people to do that. Then maybe, yes, they would turn to Photoshop. But with Photoshop, you would need to learn how to, manipulate images yourself. Although I think Photoshop now also has its own AI features. But still, you would need to learn it. And maybe, you would need to also pay for Photoshop, which is not exactly cheap, you know. So it adds a bit of friction before you could actually perform a malicious action. It's not about preventing it 100%. It's about making it hard for at least 80% of the population to make it or to do it, They would need the expertise of the real experts. Right? There's also an argument for allowing Grok to enable people to create nude photos. It's because, porn exists. If like they're saying that you guys are very, hypocritical, like why are you trying to ban this tool why aren't you banning porn? Yeah, maybe there's merit in there, but regardless if it's, let's not discuss whether porn is immoral or whatever. Let's just say that it already exists, right? But the huge difference between Grok and porn, at least, the porn that's produced, quote unquote, professionally. I don't know what other term I could use for that. But in Grok, there was no consent in using the likeness of the person to generate something that would satisfy the sexual fantasies of the person using Grok. There was no consent, or there is no consent that's being gotten from the owners of the likeness, of the photos that are being fed to Grok. Versus porn, where if it's, the legal form of porn, it's always hard to talk about this, but there's consent there, at least from the legitimate types of porn. Of course, there are those very sketchy types of porn, but at least for the vast majority, there's hopefully, consent. If there's no consent, then yes, let's raise the red flag, report those types of porn to these companies, and have them take those videos down. Which is what we should be doing with Grok. Take that capability offline, or just remove it outright. Or add guardrails to prevent people from doing that, or make it hard for people to do that. So yeah, that's it for the Grok issue. So yeah, the last action that the ICT is now proposing is it wants social media providers or social media platforms to require a verification of Filipino citizens or Filipino citizens. So here we go again. They've already provided, or they've already executed the SIM card bill, or the SIM card law, the SIM card registration law, requiring every Filipino citizen to register their SIM cards, under a centralized registry. And truth be told, I don't know what happened after. Like, it was supposed to actually enable or disable people from using SIM cards and whatever this technology to scam people. I think that's what was supposed to be one of the major reasons behind it. And I'm still receiving fake and even scam messages on my cell phone. I don't even know how they get my number. No words. But again, they're trying to do this now with social media. And I get the rationale behind it and the why they're trying to do it. They want to crack down on troll forms, scams, But the more troubling thing about this is it could enable government to, institute um, surveillance over its citizenry, right? Like if you're, posting dissent against government, which is our right. We have the right to complain, we have the right to express our grievances. It's in the constitution, by the way. So for people who are saying that uh, people should just shut up, it is you saying that to people and preventing them to express their opinions about government and about anything. You're trampling on their rights. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe they could sue you. Well, hopefully that's possible, right? But with that, with requiring people to be registered and to be verified in social media, it now enables again, if a fascist government comes in and could just track down people who are saying something bad against the government, and that's not good. You know, I mean, government has it is part of their duty to actually hear our feedback. You know, so how would they actually improve their services if they're not listening to the people? If what they're hearing is just, yeah, you're doing a good job. Yeah, 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 that's right. It is part of our responsibility actually as citizens, right? To voice out. Like, for example, here, like people are again, this is tied up to the blockchain topic or the issue earlier. When I said that I'm not a blockchain professional. So someone came in and then you shouldn't be voicing out your opinion because you're not an expert. Like, for example, like if you go out here, on the road, and see a pothole, see a huge pothole right there in the middle of the road. Are you not allowed to point out that there's a pothole there? Just because you are not what? You're not an expert. You're not a road expert. You are not a civil engineer. You are not a government official. So you are not allowed to complain about the road. See how absurd that sounds? I see this blockchain initiative and I feel that that particular statement of the DICT secretary, does it sound right? And I have this platform. Why shouldn't I voice out, and call it out, right? It is my duty. Although I'm not a blockchain expert per se, but I am a tech expert. I'm part of the tech community, and I understand software. Again, like you go back to what all the things that I've said earlier. I'm well equipped to provide my opinion, even if I didn't have that technical knowledge, even if I didn't belong in the tech community. It is my right. It is within my right as a Filipino, as a citizen of the Philippines, to express my opinion. No one, and that goes for others there who are tuning into this podcast. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. No one has the right to tell you that you should just shut up and not express your opinion because it is part of our liberties and it's in the Constitution, right? So I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but let's go back to that initiative or the proposal of the DICT to force these social media companies to verify us as users of their platforms. One thing that's also wrong about that is we would lose our right to privacy. And if you're thinking that, no, that's not going to happen, like just look at what's happening in the US and the stories of people, coming into the US and their social media history are being investigated before they are actually allowed to get into the US. So those are rights that are very sacred. I think the tech community, from what I've heard, is also building a manifesto or a protest letter against it so that uh, government won't push through with it. But I have yet to see the actual final draft. Final draft. That's contradicting, but um, yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with the DICT right now. It's a series of, I don't know, trying to please the president. Maybe, I don't know. But before I finish this episode, there's also people who are telling other people, including myself, to, again, shut up if we don't have any solutions to offer. I won't discuss why that's a very huge fallacy, but it's funny since, again, again, maybe for the scenario of seeing a pothole on the road, it's easy to suggest a solution. You just say that, fill it up with, I don't know, gravel, whatever, right? Or asphalt. It's easy to say. But for things like, this is a very complex problem. I don't even know what they're actually trying to solve, for example, with blockchain. Since if they're trying to solve transparency, uh, the people at bettergov.ph already, said this. Like, there are already other ways to do that, even in the government itself. But again, we have that right to voice out against government, regardless if we have a solution or not. You know, I don't know. That's just I'm currently tired now, so maybe let's just discuss that in another podcast episode. This podcast has already been very very negative, uh, and it's actually draining a lot of my energy. I just hope that the DICT does better and that they actually listen to the people, and especially not me, but the experts, because there's a lot of experts who are voicing out their opinions against everything that they've been doing this past week. Just you can leave me out of that equation if you guys want to. If you want to disregard my opinion, that's fine. At least I have been able to express what I think about it. But listen to people like Doc Ligot. Uh, what's this? Let me just. But everyone, bettergov.ph. They're the people who are trying to help government. Let me just make this clear. I am not anti-modernization. I am not anti-digitalization. I've been pushing for that since like forever, right? At least in my circle. But there's also value in making sure that the particular piece of technology that you're adopting is actually adding value. It's a value add, not something that just, maintains the status quo or worse, makes things even worse. So, with that, I want to thank you, everyone. This has been a very long episode, but, blame the ICT. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you like what you're or tuning in right now, if you like what the format of the podcast, and even if you don't, comment down below. If you have questions, again, comment down below. And I would appreciate it if you could share, like, and subscribe this video and the whole podcast in Spotify, in YouTube, Substack, wherever you're getting your podcast. And with that, I want to see you in the next episode. Goodbye and take care.